Welcome everyone. This is Ayurveda 1 Day 2 Masterclass. And for this class today, I want us to really focus our awareness on our felt experience, both physically and also mentally as we move through the practice together. Just making a mental note as we move through what our reactions are to the different elements of class. Do we find ourselves really enjoying it or feeling frustrated by it or feeling challenged by it or feeling a sense of ease and relaxation? So as we move throughout our time together, let's keep those things in mind, how we are responding in our mind and our body to the practice that we're moving through. So as we begin today, I'd like for us to start in supine. So let's find our way onto our backs on the mat. And we will be here for a few extra minutes in the beginning. So if we'd like to add support under the knees or under the head, let's allow ourselves to find a really comfortable position. And as our body finds this comfortable place on the mat, let's allow ourselves to rest a little deeper, feeling our body relax and release the muscular effort, making any adjustments necessary so that we can feel a sense of ease here in the body. And now taking into account as we scan our bodies, how everything's feeling today. Our body may feel very different at the beginning of this practice than it did yesterday. And so let's make some mental notes here. Noticing how the body's feeling. Taking into account if we're recovering from illness or injury or have any special concerns. And let's choose today and always to honor our bodies as we move and as we breathe. And now let's bring our attention to our breath. Feeling how our breath moves through the body. And feeling our body's response to the breath, noticing our mental response to the breath. And let's begin to move into an equal ratio breath, where the inhale and the exhale are about the same. And now let's begin to deepen that breath so that each inhale and each exhale take a little bit more time. So if we were counting, for instance, perhaps we were inhaling for 4 and exhaling for 4. Let's now inhale for 5 and exhale for 5. And as we continue with this deeper equal ratio breath, let's tune in and notice how this changes the sensations in our body and in our mind. And noticing if we have a reaction to this particular practice. Do we have an opinion about how it feels and our experience? Let's really work to keep our movements in correlation with this exact same pace of the breath. So with our next exhale, let's draw one knee toward the chest. Let's pause here through another cycle of the breath. And with our next inhale, stretch the right leg out. And exhaling, our left knee to the chest. Pausing here through another cycle. And as we inhale, stretching the left leg out. As we exhale, drawing right knee to the chest. And we'll continue this in this very slow, methodical way. Inhaling to stretch out the leg. And exhaling as we draw the other knee in. The next time we exhale, let's draw both knees toward the chest. Allowing ourselves to gently rock from side to side in a slower way than normal. And bringing it back to the center. We'll place our feet on the mat for constructive rest or bridge prep. If we had something under the knees, we may find we need to move that out of the way now. And we're maintaining this same deep, even pace of the breath as we inhale and lift into bridge. And exhaling as we release down. Let's flow through this a few times, staying with that slower pace. Let's do one more cycle of the breath here. As we allow our hips to rest on the mat, let's separate our feet toward the side edges of the mat and allow our knees to drop from one side to the other. And again, keeping this in a really slow pattern of movement. And as we inhale to the top the next time, let's stay there. And gently rolling over to our side. Let's press ourselves up to seated. Coming into an easy seated posture. If we choose, we can place a blanket or something under the hips. And let's find ourselves focusing our attention on the grounding of the seat here, feeling where our body's touching the mat. And feeling our spine and torso, our neck and head rising tall out of the hips. And feeling that connection to our deep equal ratio breath. Let's begin to add arm moves to this breath. So we'll inhale, reaching arms overhead. As we exhale, drawing through heart center. And we'll follow this with our breath. And one more breath here. Now relaxing our arms by our sides, let's feel ourselves connect palms to the mat, creating that sense of grounding through the hands and arms. And feeling ourselves open up through the chest, drawing the shoulders back and down. And feeling the body receive the breath while maintaining that nice connection to the floor. Now then, let's turn over onto all fours. As we find our way onto hands and knees, we'll remind ourselves that fists instead of palms on the mat is always a great option to protect the joints of the wrist. And begin to work through some cat-cows now. Feeling that inhale, open up the front of the body. And our exhale, stretching and releasing the back of the body. One more breath here. And returning to our neutral spine. Now let's press our left heel back and reach our right fingertips forward. As we exhale, drawing elbow and knee together under the body. Inhaling as we reach it out. And let's flow this same side a couple more times. One more time to reach. And one more time to draw elbow and knee together. And releasing back to all fours. Now pressing our right heel back and reaching left fingertips forward. With our exhale, we'll draw elbow and knee together under the body. Inhaling as we reach. And let's allow it to flow a few more times. And last one. And releasing back to all fours again. Now let's press back to our child's pose, allowing ourselves to rest down, hips resting toward the heels and forehead resting on something, the floor or hands or fists or a block. And pausing for a moment here to feel and tune in with the movement of our breath. Feeling our bodies expand out toward our legs with the inhale. And releasing away from our legs with our exhale. Now actively reaching forward through our arms and spreading wide through our fingertips. Let's inhale forward into kneeling plank. And exhale back to child's pose. Now let's do a few more of these. Inhaling, drawing it forward. Exhaling as we press back. The next time we press back to our child's pose, let's tuck our toes and lift ourselves up and back into down dog. Pausing here for a few moments to pedal it out. Moving through the body in a way that helps us to find some ease in the pose. Now pressing up high onto the balls of both feet. Let's bend our knees a lot and push our hips away from our hands. And then stepping up to the top of the mat. As we come into our forward fold, let's allow a nice bend in the knees and let our body rest on the legs. And let's nod our head yes. And then shake our head no. And bringing it back to the center, let's bring fingertips to opposite elbows. And shift from one foot to the other. Allowing ourselves some time here to enjoy the stretch for the backs of the legs. And bringing it back to the center again. Releasing our hands, let's bend our knees a lot and send the effort back into our hips. Reaching wide as we lengthen the spine. And pressing our way up to mountain and reaching overhead. Feeling ourselves press down through our feet as we lift through our bodies and relax our shoulders. Adding in some side stretches here, we'll reach one hand and then the other, alternating from one side to the other side. Feeling that stretch all along from the bottom of the shoulder to the top of the hip. And we'll bring it back to the center again. Taking arms behind us for chest expansion. Choosing to interlace or press palms, let's open the chest by drawing the shoulder blades back. Feeling those core muscles gently lift. Feeling our heart center lifting. And letting that go. Taking a long stance now, we can choose to face the long edge of the mat or step on either side of the mat. We're taking care to make sure our footing is stable, so choosing our best option for stability. Inhaling, let's reach our arms up into five-pointed star. And exhaling, let's bend into moonflowers. Inhaling as we reach. And exhaling as we bend. Let's continue to flow through moonflowers here, returning if we've left from that even, deep, equal ratio breath. On the next one, let's turn this into sunflowers, circling through the arms and hinging deeper at the hips. Still staying with that breath. Let's complete one more cycle here. And as we do, letting our arms relax by our sides, and we'll find our way to the top of the mat. Inhaling, let's reach arms overhead. And swan diving, we'll fold it in. Right foot stepping back into our lunge. And left foot back for down dog. Pulling forward into our plank. Resting knees down. Shifting and lowering for crocodile. Releasing to the mat and peeling up for cobra. Relaxing and tucking toes as we press up and back to down dog. Right foot stepping to the top of the mat for lunge. Pressing to forward fold. Reaching wide up to mountain and overhead. Circling as we sit and returning to mountain. Swan diving to fold. Left foot stepping to the back of the mat. Followed by the right. Pulling it forward into plank. Knees down. Shifting and releasing for crocodile. And then to the mat. Peeling up for cobra. Relaxing and tucking toes. We'll press up and back to down dog. Left foot stepping to the top. Pressing right foot up, forward fold. Reaching wide and overhead. Circling as we sit. And returning to mountain. Swan diving, let's fold. Right foot stepping back. Let's release our knee down and reach arms overhead. Hands back to the mat. Tucking those back toes and lifting the knee, we'll find our way back to down dog. Pulling forward plank. Shifting as we lower for crocodile. And pressing to upward facing dog. And back. Downward facing dog. Right foot stepping to the top. Back knee releases. We inhale, reaching overhead. Hands to the mat. Back toes tucking, knee lifting as we press up to forward fold. Reaching wide, let's come up and overhead mountain. Circling as we sit for chair. And returning to mountain. Folding it in. Left foot stepping to the back for lunge. Back knee and foot release. Inhaling, arms overhead. Exhaling, hands down, tucking toes, lifting the knee. Right foot stepping back, down dog. Pulling forward, plank. Shifting and lowering for crocodile. Pressing to upward facing dog. And back to down dog. Left foot to the top of the mat. Back knee and foot releasing. Reaching overhead. Hands to the mat. Tucking the back toes, lifting the knee and pressing up to forward fold. Reaching wide. Let's come up to mountain. Chair pose. And returning to mountain. Folding it in. Inhaling, monkey pose, half lift. And releasing. Right foot stepping back. Let's stay lifted in that back knee, reaching overhead for crescent lunge. Taking arms out wide, let's take a little twist to the side. Bringing it back to the middle. Arms overhead. Hands to the mat. And stepping back, down dog. Pulling forward for plank. crocodile, upward facing dog, and downward facing dog. Right foot to the top, reaching into crescent lunge. Arms wide, twisting the other way. Back to the center, arms overhead, and to the mat. Pressing up to forward fold. Inhaling monkey pose. Releasing down. Reaching wide as we come up to mountain. Circling as we sit. And returning to mountain. Folding it in. Inhaling monkey. Releasing. Left foot stepping back for crescent lunge as we reach overhead. Arms wide. Taking that twist. Back to the center. Arms overhead. Hands to the mat. Downward facing dog. Pulling forward for plank. Crocodile. Upward facing dog. And downward facing dog. Stepping the right foot to the top. Crescent lunge. Opening those arms. Taking the twist. Back to the center and overhead. Hands to the mat. Pressing up. Reaching up to mountain. Chair pose. And mountain. And folding it in. Inhaling monkey. And releasing. Left foot back. Reaching overhead. Arms out wide. Taking the twist. Back to the center and overhead. Hands to the mat. Downward facing dog. Pulling it forward for plank. Lowering for crocodile. Upward facing dog. And downward facing dog. Left foot to the top, crescent lunge. Arms wide, taking that twist. Back to the center. Overhead. Hands to the mat. Pressing up to forward fold. Reaching all the way overhead. Circling as we sit. And returning to the top, mountain pose. Relaxing arms by our sides. Let's take a moment to grab a drink or towel off. Adjusting wardrobe. And as we meet back together, we'll find ourselves in mountain pose at the top of the mat. Inhaling, let's reach arms overhead. Swan diving as we fold it in. Inhaling, monkey pose. And releasing. Inhaling to reach arms overhead. And circling as we sit into chair. Returning to the top. Swan diving to fold. Inhaling for monkey. Releasing down. Reaching wide as we press up and overhead. Circling as we sit to chair. And returning to the top. Let's continue here, folding it in. Inhaling for monkey. Releasing. Reaching wide and overhead. Sitting into chair. And returning to the top. One more flow through, folding. Monkey pose. Folding. Reaching wide and all the way overhead. Circling to sit. And returning to the top again. Let's fold it in and step our way back into downward facing dog. Now let's step our right foot to the top of the mat, coming into warrior two. Reaching back for reverse warrior. And coming forward into side angle stretch. And up to warrior two. Straightening through our front leg, let's relax our arms and pivot to face the back of the mat, coming into warrior two here. Straightening through our front leg and reaching back for reverse triangle. And bringing it forward into triangle pose. Taking our hands to the mat, let's step it back into downward facing dog. And we have the option here to move through vinyasa if we choose. As we meet back together in our downward facing dog, let's step our right foot to the top and find our warrior two. Straightening through that front leg, reaching back for reverse triangle. Arms up to a T and bringing it into triangle pose. Inhaling, arms up, and returning to warrior two. Straightening our front leg, releasing arms. Let's pivot to face the front of the mat now, coming into our warrior two. Reaching back for reverse warrior. And bringing it into side angle stretch. And bringing hands to the mat. Let's step back into downward facing dog. Opportunity to flow through vinyasa or hold in down dog or child's. As we meet back together in our downward facing dog, let's step our right foot to the top and come back to our warrior two. Reaching back for reverse. Bringing it forward, side angle. Looking down in front of our front foot. Let's float this into balancing half moon. And nice and easy, float it back to warrior two. Straightening our front leg, relaxing our arms. Let's pivot to face the back of the mat, finding our warrior two on this side. Reaching back for reverse. Bringing it forward, side angle. Taking our gaze down and forward of our front foot, shifting and floating into balancing half moon. And nice and easy, floating it back to warrior two. And taking hands to the mat, stepping it back, down dog, option for vinyasa or holding pose. As we meet together in our down dog, let's step our right foot to the top, coming into our warrior two. Reaching back as we straighten our front leg, reverse triangle. Bringing it forward into regular triangle pose. Bringing both hands to the mat, let's bump our back foot up and out for pyramid pose. We can always use a block here under our hands. Grounding through our left hand, let's twist open with the right. Arm reaching overhead or hand to hip, revolve triangle. Releasing hands back to the mat. Let's step our way, actually let's bring ourselves up to warrior two. And straightening our leg, relaxing arms. Let's pivot to face the front of the mat again, warrior two. Straightening our front leg, reaching back, reverse triangle. Bringing it forward, triangle pose. Bringing hands to the mat, let's bump our back foot up and a little bit out, preparing for a pyramid, grabbing a block if we like. And rotating open with the left, arm reaching overhead or hand to hip. And releasing back to the mat. Stepping it all the way back this time for down dog. Opportunity to hold or flow through poses. As we meet back together in downward facing dog, let's take our right heel to the sky. And drawing it forward, let's come into crescent lunge. Reaching arms overhead. Feeling ourselves drop strength from the ground as we press through the hips and legs and feet. Drawing hands to our heart center. Let's shift ourselves forward and float into warrior three. If we like, grabbing our block as we open it up into balancing half moon. Revolved half moon, left hand down and right hand up. Both hands to the mat, lifting that left heel high, standing split. Bringing that left knee forward as we stand it up and come into tree pose. Choosing any option here for tree that we like. Releasing our left foot down and swan diving to fold it in. Let's step our way back to downward facing dog. Taking our left heel to the sky and stepping it all the way forward, crescent lunge. Bringing hands to our heart center, shifting as we float forward into balancing half moon. Oh, sorry, warrior three. Warrior three, and then into balancing half moon. And then switching hands, right hand down, left hand up, revolved half moon. And releasing both hands to the mat, letting our right heel lift high, standing split. Bending that right knee in as we press to standing and come into tree pose. Choosing any arm options. Releasing that right foot, hands coming back to the heart. Let's pause here for a moment. Checking in. Feeling our breath. Feeling sensations in the body. Noticing any reactions we're having to the practice. As we inhale, let's reach arms overhead. Swan diving as we fold. Let's inhale for monkey and lengthen through the spine and the backs of the legs. Now releasing down. Coming back to all fours, stepping back and resting on our knees. And as we come to our all fours, let's draw some big figure eights with our shoulders and hips. And then drawing that shape backwards. And coming back to the center. All right, coming to a seated position now. We can rest onto a hip, bringing our legs around to the front. Let's begin our seated postures with butterfly. So adding blanket, pillow, bolster, block, whatever we like under our hips if we want to support there. And finding our way to the posture, soles of the feet together, knees resting open. Now let's tune in with our body and notice what we'd like to do today. If we'd like for this to be more restorative in the butterfly, we can place either eggs, blocks, or blankets or pillows under the knees. We can choose to work on the posture of the pose, lifting nice and tall. We can work to deepen the stretch through the hips by leaning forward. So whatever we choose, let's find our way to the butterfly that we'd like to experience today. We'll take about 8 breaths here. About 3 more. As we begin to release our butterfly pose, let's stretch our legs out in front for staff pose, and we'll have several options here. We can choose to ground through staff pose by pressing through our hands and arms toward the mat, lifting through the body and activating through the legs. We can make it a more restorative version by placing support under the knees. We can choose a forward fold option, leaning heart toward the toes. Or if we'd like an even more restful option, we can back up against a wall or support behind the back. So let's choose an option for our forward fold. Now let's take about 8 breaths here. About 3 more breaths here. With our next inhale, let's bring ourselves up if we were folding forward. We're coming away from the wall if we were leaning against a wall or a chair. And up next, we have hip stretches. So we can choose seated figure 4 stretch. We can choose a double pigeon or fire logs, whatever we like to call this pose. We can choose a cow face pose and add in the shoulder stretch. We can choose a pigeon facing the floor with our front knee bent and our back leg behind. So we'll choose our hip stretch variation, lots of options here. Finding our way into our chosen stretch for today, and we'll take about 8 breaths here. About 3 more breaths here. And as we begin to release our stretch on this side, let's mindfully make our way into hip stretch on the other side. It's possible that our body may ask for a different pose, so we may choose to change. Seated figure 4, fire log or double pigeon, or moving into pigeon facing the mat. As we find our way to the pose on this side, let's settle in and take about 8 breaths here. About 3 more breaths. And as we begin to release, let's do so mindfully. And we'll begin to make our way onto our backs now. As we roll down and come into that supine position, let's draw knees to chest. Allow ourselves to orient to this relationship to the ground. Feeling our body perhaps rest a little more deeply here. And releasing our feet to the mat. Let's bring hands under the hips so we're sitting on the backs of our hands and lift our legs up for variation on legs up the wall. Let's give ourselves some circles with the ankles, or perhaps we prefer to point and flex, or we may enjoy just allowing our feet to rest without effort. Let's enjoy this pose for about 6 more breaths. And bending our knees, releasing our feet to the mat. Moving now into a variation of bridge pose. So if we like, we can stay right here with our hands underneath our hips, or we could choose to bring a blanket, block, or bolster, or pillow under our hips for a restorative bridge. We can choose to lift hips for an active bridge pose. And we can even interlace fingers and walk arms under shoulders for an even deeper stretch through the shoulders and upper body. We'll choose our variation of bridge for today. And let's take about 10 breaths here. About 5 more breaths. And as we release, if we were using support under the hips, let's move that to the side. If we like, we can bring knees to chest and offer that gentle rock from side to side. And then returning to the center, our next pose is a twist. So we can choose the gentlest of twists by bringing feet to the mat and a little wide and dropping knees over to the right. We could choose a little more sensation by drawing knees to the chest and then taking them over to the right. Or we can stretch our right leg out, guiding our left knee across the body as we scoot the hips back to the left for the twist that offers the most sensation. So we'll choose our option here, and let's spend 6 breaths in this twist to the right. And now let's bring it back to the center. And then taking our twist over to the left. And let's take 6 breaths on this side. Bringing ourselves back to the center. If we like, one more time, hugging knees toward the chest. And as we release, let's make our way into final relaxation. Allowing ourselves to stretch out on the mat or come to whatever position is most comfortable and relaxing to the body. As we find our way to that final relaxation shape, let's give ourselves the opportunity to make any last adjustments needed so that we're able to be as comfortable and as much ease in the body as possible. And as our body finds that sense of ease, Let's also allow our minds the same opportunity to enjoy resting with ease in the spaces between the thoughts. Shavasana. Let's begin to bring our awareness back to our bodies. Initiating some small, gentle movements. Allowing our breath to deepen. With our next inhale, if we like, we can reach arms overhead to stretch it out. And then melting into the floor as we exhale. And gently making our way over onto our side. And as we feel ready, pressing ourselves up to seated position again. Drawing our hands to our heart center. Let's take a moment to check in again and notice how our body is feeling, how our mind is feeling. And if we have any opinions running through our mind. And taking this moment to be grateful for sensation, for experience, for thought. Thank you for allowing me to guide you in this practice today. Namaste.